do you think the central banks are really ever going to be able to normalize their balance sheets, or are they just telling us so as not to freak us out? But we're in an era where those balance sheets are only going to grow over the long haul.
Yeah, I think they're unable to normalize them. They could stop growing for periods of time. They could even shrink for short periods of time. But I think until we have a structural change, I think we're in an environment where they're kind of forced monetizing. And ECB is in a particularly rough spot because their countries, their sovereign bond markets can't really work without ECB support. And so, for example, if you look at Italy, ECB bought basically all Italian bond issuance over the past
I'm
number of years.
sorry, I'm chuckling here, but we talk about zombie companies, but it's like you've got zombie sovereign credit markets over there, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's some people compare that to the United States, and the United States has a host of its own problems, particularly negative net international investment position and trade deficit that is worse than Europe. But one area where we don't have is that our states are not as insolvent as European countries. And so, for example, if we look at the top 5 U.S. states, their debt to GDP on the state level is actually relatively low because we have a fiscal union and a monetary union, right? So we all share the same money, and then our states share most of the same, kind of entitlement military system. So that's abstracted away from the state level for the most part. And so, their debt to GDP might be, say, 10%. Whereas if you look at Europe, you have a monetary union without a fiscal union.
Mhm.
And so the countries are responsible for their own systems. And so they enter that union with high debt levels. It's only got worse from there. And so Italy, for example, has like 150% debt to GDP, and that's just completely unsupportable without the ECB support for those bonds. Basically, there's not a lot of foreign demand for those bonds, especially at those rates. And if the rates ever went high enough that actually would attract foreign capital, it'd be a fiscal spiral. There'd be clearly no way to pay, no way to support the interest on that debt. And so the Fed's trapped, ECB's trapped, Bank of Japan's trapped, where especially the ECB, but basically they're kind of stuck in this position where they have to support their sovereign bond markets, and that can come at the expense of currency devaluation. And so I don't think they're going to be able to normalize anytime soon, although some of them, like the Fed, can do these periods of pushback, which I think is why people have to be careful with how aggressive they get, what their timing is if they take on any leverage, because central banks can temporarily fight back pretty hard.